Welcome to Ponchatoula Live. I'm your host, Parker Layrisson, and today I've got a terrific guest. If you like the Strawberry Festival, the big grand event, you're going to love today's guest because he's our most recent chairman. He's a man who has devoted his life to protecting and serving our community, first through over 2 decades in law enforcement, where he was a lieutenant with the state police, later as a safety consultant, and he also does things for the community, such as serving the Rotary Club, as I mentioned, the Strawberry Board, so many other things. So, with no further ado, I bring our guest, Rueben Auter. Rueben, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Parker.
Thank you for appearing, and a special thanks to you for your patience with our tech difficulties. We're starting 20 minutes late here. Folks, this is my fault. I'll confess, I've done this many times before. I am probably the world's lowest tech podcaster. And so I have no doubt that whatever blew up here today was probably my fault, not my producers, certainly not Ruben's. But Rueben, why don't we move forward with you just telling our viewers and our listeners a little bit about yourself?
So I was actually born and raised in Baton Rouge. Graduated from high school in Baton Rouge in the late 80s. Fell in love with the Tangipahoa, Hammond, Ponchatoula area when I attended college at Southeastern. Commuted over here for several years until I got my degree in criminal justice from Southeastern. And at that point in my life, I was a reserve officer with the Baton Rouge City Police Department. And once I graduated, I was looking to go full time and applied with the state police. And when it looked like that was going to work out, they asked which troop I wanted to go to, and I wanted to go to Troop L. Had never been to Troop L in my life, but I knew I fell in love with this area. I knew this area was part of that troop. So that's why I wanted to, move over here and work in this troop area and really get to know it. And so that's how I ended up in, Ponchatoula.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that background story. If you would, for our folks that aren't familiar with how the state police works, tell us about Troop L, which parishes it covers, and kind of how the state police is organized in general, and and how it works in terms of where you guys get sent, where you're sent.
So in the application process, you get asked what's your top three troop choices that you would like to go to. So, my top choice was Troop L. I was fortunate enough to get that troop area. It encompasses Tangipahoa Parish, St. Helena Parish, St. Tammany Parish, and Washington Parish. So,
so the entirety of the North Shore, you kind of covering a big area here. Those are all, and the geographically big parishes too. I mean, just Tangipahoa is 50 miles, long.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of big parishes, a lot of rural areas, along with the two major interstate systems that run through the state. So it kept us very busy and kept life very interesting for 27 of my years as an adult.
Well, thank you for your service. As a guy who watched my dad, police the community my entire childhood and some of my adulthood, and having watched my brother be at it, close to 27 years. I know those are stressful. It's probably a thing where the years are short, but the days are long, right? I mean, a 12-hour shift probably seemed like an eternity. And you put yourself out there on the line, and I appreciate it, and I know our community does. We always back the badge around here. But before we dive deeper into your career in law enforcement, let's circle back to the beginning. Kind of tell us about your childhood and where you're from and what it was like.
So I grew up on the east side of Baton Rouge, just outside the city limits. And my mom and dad, we lived out off of Florida Boulevard. I'm an only child. I don't have any brothers or sisters. So it was a pretty good, upbringing. My dad He was in construction. He started off as a welder and then ended up in construction management. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. We didn't go without much. We you know, product of public schools.
What high school did you go to?
I graduated from Bel Air High School.
Okay. Like when you
Yeah.
said you're outside the city limits, I didn't know how those boundaries work and where you go. Okay. So it sounds like your dad did pretty well. If he worked up from working construction to managing construction, and your mom was able to stay at home, your dad must have been pretty successful. What lessons did you learn from each of them? Your mom in the house, and your dad really anywhere in the house, in work or whatever. But what are the things when you think back, you're like, I'm kind of where I am today because of what I learned from them back then.
Look, hard work and determination will get you where you need to be.
Amen.
You gotta, if you can set those goals and stay focused on those goals, and you can achieve those goals. But it doesn't take it takes hard work. It doesn't just come to you.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think today's generation really needs to hear that and understand that. I've noticed just employing people at my law office that we're looking at this thing differently. The workforce, people, your age and mine, gray in the beard, people coming out of high school. I don't want to, disparage their work ethics, but I can't help but notice they're very obviously different than probably what yours was growing up or mine was. And they need to know how important that hard work element is, to moving forward. So, folks, we're here with Rueben Auter, former state police lieutenant, talking about his childhood. You mentioned coming to college at Southeastern. How did you discover Southeastern, and what was that chapter of life like?
I actually had a friend of mine. We had decided that he wanted to go back to school. So when I graduated college, I didn't go. I mean, I'm sorry. When I graduated high school, I didn't immediately go into college. I took a couple of years and worked and decided that what I was doing at the time was not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, and college was going to be my way, to end up in a career that I really enjoyed and loved. And so me and a friend of mine actually started at Southeastern in criminal justice together, and which got me introduced to Southeastern. I had been over here a few times, but once I got into Southeastern over here and really saw the area and got to know a lot of the people and a lot of folks around the college, it just it's a big draw. I really enjoyed it over here, and I knew this is where I was going to settle.
Well, let's talk about people. As you got to the area, you got to know folks. Who were some of the first people from this local community, from Hammond, from Ponchatoula, from Southeastern, our surrounding community? Who comes to mind first when you think about friends you made, mentors you acquired, just people who made an impact in your life and help you figure that out, that this was going to be your home and this was the direction you were heading permanently?
Well, two people that jump out at me, are two folks that I took classes under at Southeastern. One was Judge Bruce Bennett, and the other was Judge Jimmy Coon, right? Two fantastic people, two fabulous instructors. Learned more about criminal procedure and criminal law under them than anywhere else. There were several friends that I've made over here over the years. Couple of us went to state police together, John Gardner, Tony Vornado, and then it was just countless people that I've met over here during my time, and especially in the early days.
Yeah, sounds like you were really fortunate to run into some great guys early. I mean, those are local legends you're naming off here.
Yeah, they are. They truly are.
That's really neat. So as you get into the next stage of your career or of your life, which is your career, Tell us about law enforcement coming up early. It sounds like you started as a very young trooper. What was that like?
I did. So I had an uncle that actually worked for the Baton Rouge Police Department, and which really he's the one that really got my interest peaked in law enforcement. I got to hang around with him and a lot of his friends a lot coming up, and I knew that's where I wanted to go after high school. So um, the once I got through college, and I remember the day I graduated college at Southeastern, which was in December of '93. I left my graduation a little bit early, but after I'd gotten my diploma, and went to Baton Rouge and actually took the state police entrance exam.
Oh, wow.
And the so and I passed that, and then the process started. And then in June of '94 is when we actually started the academy. There was 80 of us that started. Yeah, there was 80 of us that started the academy. So that was a big class for state police. And then 77 of us actually ended up graduating. So, it was a great class, great group of guys. Um, After that, we came to the troop. There was, I believe, 6 or 7 of us that actually came to Troop L, and at the time, that was the largest amount of troopers that Troop L's had ever gotten out of an academy class. So
Well,
the
you
need
mentioned
for manpower is
88's a
definitely there.
large class. Did you say that y'all graduated 77 out of 88? Is that right?
77 out of 80.
Oh, out of 80. Okay. Well, okay.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
large class. So y'all bring over a big crew. Was there like a ton of retiring troopers here at that time? Like how and why did y'all have such a large group coming here at one time?
There was some hiring freezes in the late 80s,
Okay.
and they were, and a lot of retirements took place during that time. So they were really um, in a not in a hurry, but the importance was there to start backfilling those positions. The manpower, there was definite manpower shortage at the time, so they
Mhm.
were really pushing classes through.
Yeah, I've always been intrigued by the state police and kind of how it works. Ron Whitaker Jr. was my classmate and buddy at St. Joseph when we were kids. And so Mr. Ron was one of the seminal heroes of my childhood and, of course, friends of my dad. And anyway, it's just neat. It's what, as an adult, we understand there's a lot of politics and all this going on. But as a kid, you had a different view. It's interesting to kind of hear the different eras and things because there are a lot of my age. I'm 49, turning 50. They also had a big Troop L class that year too. You had or within a year or two of another. From Newell and Noto and Kemp
Yeah.
and Whitaker and all these guys that got out at virtually the same time. And I'm sure to those buddies that I missed, and I apologize. Those guys come to mind first, but it does seem to come in waves. It doesn't sputter out like one trooper a year here. These kind of big bumper crops sometime. So y'all hit the street. I guess it kind of gives you a disproportionately younger force than maybe your average troop time in history with that many new guys. What are some lessons you learned as a young law enforcement officer that you think would be great for incoming law enforcement officers to know now?
Well, backing up just a little bit, you talked about Ron Whitaker Jr. Big Ron. His dad was one of my first shift sergeants.
Oh wow, what a great guy to learn from,
Yeah,
man.
no, he's
Commander Whitaker. He's a great man.
He was fantastic. I learned a lot from him, and being able to be a part of Ron Jr. coming in and watching him flourish the way he has has been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, I guess the latest Commander Whitaker in that line. That's cool. Yeah, we're really
Yeah.
proud of Ron. He's. I want to thank you for your impact and mentoring him through that process. But he worked for my dad, and Dad was of course sad to see him go, but also happy as a mentor to to know where his career would be going. And that's a guy who's been a star, and it's cool to see him, getting the breaks that he's gotten. And our whole state's in a better place because of what he's doing, and part of that's the training and guidance you gave him.
Yeah, I've enjoyed working with all those guys. Since I retired, I miss a lot of the people.
Mm-hmm.
And when I get to see them and talk with them from time to time, it's just a true joy to go back and share them stories. So
you sound like my dad. When people ask him about sheriff's office, he says he misses the people but not the job.
Yeah, some of the work has exceeded where I'm at in life now. So
yeah,
but I have enjoyed it. I loved my time in law enforcement. I loved it. We had great days and we had some really bad days, but the good days outnumbered the bad, all the time. Some of the newer things, something, if I could pass on to younger law enforcement is, always treat people how you would want to be treated yourself if you was standing in that position.
amen.
Not everybody that you deal with is a bad guy. You got folks out there that are hardworking folks and they made a mistake and mistakes happen, and always treat people with respect. It doesn't matter who it is. You treat folks with respect and it'll get returned to you.
That's wonderful advice, Rueben, and I thank you for it. Let's talk about the transition from an active 25, 26-year career in state police to leaving behind the public sector, going into the private sector. What's that like, and what was your experience there?
It was a good experience, actually. I actually, when I knew I was retiring, I put some feelers out. I ended my career in the motor carrier safety unit, which is responsible for the enforcement of commercial motor vehicles and transportation companies. So I learned a lot in there, and ended up transitioning from state police to an insurance company for about 3 years. And then after that, I opened my own consulting practice. So yeah, look, the private sector has been good, and I enjoy it. Sometimes you just can't escape the public, service part of things. Once public service gets in your blood, it's
right.
it's hard to get away from it.
Especially when you make the wild decision to one day be chairman of the Strawberry Festival, because there's no bigger public in your face at one time in Louisiana than here in Ponchatoula come Strawberry Festival season. So let's turn our attention that way. You and I spend a lot of time together in the Rotary Club, and we both know that the motto of that club is service above self. And when I think about ways you can carry that mantra into life, there's no better example of that in Ponchatoula and in our city's history than the Strawberry Festival, because this is something where we're basically taking just a collection of community people and we're putting on this giant event. It's bigger than a Saints game. It's just it's the most critical thing to every local nonprofit's budget for the year, whether it's some little church that's selling something sweet or our Rotary Club selling to whatever. But we take this town of Ponchatoula, which people call Mayberry-esque, population 8,000 or so, and we have hundreds of thousands of people descend on it. And it requires little groups like Rotary to suddenly be running a restaurant, for a weekend. And it might be useless lawyers like me cooking jambalaya. But you went through the ranks, and we'll hear how you got there. You're coming off the year as chairman. Well, you're the conductor. These guys are playing, this instrument there, that instrument there. You're kind of overseeing everything. What even possesses you to go in that direction? Is it the public service thing you mentioned coming out of policing, or like how did all this come to be? Like, how did you get involved with the Strawberry Festival, and then take us on that journey from when you started on the board to how you eventually became chairperson, and the challenges you had through this last year in this most recent festival?
So look, as a trooper years ago, I remember the Strawberry Festival happening, and we would be assigned to the festival for the weekend, whether it be assisting with traffic. I remember numerous years we'd have to shut down the exit ramps on the interstate because they were getting too backed up, or to even doing a foot patrol on the festival grounds. And I loved it. I had fun doing that, interacting with people. Um, and then in 2016, during that festival, I was invited to see some of the behind the scenes stuff, and I got told then that once you kind of see what goes on, overall, you're probably gonna get hooked to it, and I did. So I actually my first year on the board as a weekend warrior was in 2019, and I served in a role as a security liaison.
That's a natural fit.
Somewhat, that was still kind of a new position type thing. It really wasn't
Yeah.
they were just kind of experimenting with that. I mean, and that was something that I could do, right? Because I know all those folks and could communicate with them, very very easily.
Yeah.
And in 2020, um, I was brought on as an appointed member for the security liaison road, and then we had the COVID hit.
So let's chat about that for a minute, because I think it's important people watching and listening understand how the festival board works, because you have voting members that are kind of, I'll call it constitutionally, created. I don't, you don't have a real constitution, but and then you have appointed members that don't vote but are more formal, and then you have other volunteers. If you would, can you give people kind of an overview of how the Strawberry Festival is organized, like who runs it, and
Yeah,
how
so
conducted?
we have a set of bylaws that dictate, we have an executive committee that consists of the chairman elect, a past chairman, our treasurer, our secretary, and our PR person. From there, we have numerous nonprofit organizations that have 2 members each on the board.
And this would be the Rotary Club, the Kiwanis Club, the JCs, the Chamber of Commerce, etc.
Correct. American Legion,
Right.
Ponchatoula Youth Softball, Baseball. So all those folks have 2 members of their organizations that they submit to the Strawberry Board, and that's our board of directors.
Okay, and as I understand it, those directors and those organizations are kind of the groups that started the Strawberry Festival. So where we now have dozens and dozens of nonprofits on site selling things, they weren't all there for 50 years, and so kind of okay, I got you. I'm with you. So please continue. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, you're fine. So we have our board of directors, we have our executive board, and then the chairman can appoint 20 additional appointed members to do various jobs, for the festival itself. So we have about 41 people right now on the board, and they're all
just to be clear,
dedicated.
Ruben, I'm sorry to interject, but I want to make sure the public's aware of this. Just to be clear, these are 41 volunteers that are unpaid, right?
Absolutely.
You guys are spending countless hours to create this giant event for us, and you get no profit for it. You're just doing it for the love of the community.
Nobody receives a salary at all.
Okay.
Nobody. The chairman, like nobody. They do this for the love of the festival. And that's why I say we have a very dedicated board, comprised of 41 people, all different kind of personalities. But everybody's main goal at the end of the day is to put on a very family friendly, safe festival that benefits our nonprofits and our farmers. And just brings the community together.
So eventually, and I'll take some liberties here, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. So, you're kind of invited on as a security specialist because of your background in securing our community. You enjoy it, take a shine to it. They love having a guy like you with your kind of, as Liam Neeson would say, unique set of skills and it's a perfect kind of fit. And eventually, people view your leadership capabilities and start suggesting, hey, maybe you can run the whole show. And that idea seems nice to you. And here we are. Last year, you're elected chairman. And of course, at Strawberry Festival, that's a multi-year commitment. You're chair-elect, and then you chair. And so, bring us through that process, if you will, and then let's talk about your year as chairman and your festival
So
and all
yeah,
the challenges.
to be chairman, it's a 3-year commitment. So
Mm-hmm.
once you run, you are elected as what they call the chairman elect. That year is spent shadowing the actual chairman, to learn everything that you possibly can, and learn certain deadlines, certain processes, when things need to be signed off on. So it's, and then part of the chairman elect's duties is to interact, to be the liaison between the board and the ride vendor.
Mm-hmm.
And make sure all that is set up and everything is safe to go and good to go there. Um, and then the second year is actually your chairman year. So, and it is a busy, busy time. You not only are you running the monthly meetings, but you're, like I say, you're making sure everything is signed off on and deadlines are being met. Um, and you're responsible for board overall, making sure that job assignments are being performed adequately. And then in January it really gets ramped up. We Strawberry Festival, the Strawberry Queen herself is usually typically invited to the Washington Mardi Gras.
Mm-hmm.
And
You're talking
we go
about
to that.
I married a former Strawberry Queen, and years later I proposed to her at the Washington Mardi Gras. So I know well what you're speaking of there, brother.
Yeah, no, and it is a production up there, man. I'm gonna tell you.
Absolutely.
But we and that just kind of kicks it off. We go from that, and then we go to the Louisiana Association of Fairs and Festivals convention, which is typically around that time frame, either just before or just after the DC trip. And then in February, typically sometime in February, depends on when Mardi Gras is itself, we have the Strawberry Ball, which is another big event that we get a lot of people that come to that, and it's great participation.
Yeah, it's like Ponchatoula's prom, but for everybody of all ages, and it's really wonderful.
Yeah, that's a great event, man. Had a blast.
Mm-hmm.
We had that's typically when we have our Queen's Day events. So
Yeah.
we have 30 queens from across the state that come in. Wow. and enjoy that ball with us.
So I hope people are getting a feel for what I'm hearing, Rueben, is not just multi-year commitment, but within your year, this isn't just a one weekend thing. This is event after event after event, plus there are umpteen meetings throughout the year and all the communications and phone calls and emails that go. So it's like you're taking on a job here. I mean, do you have any idea how many hours you put into Strawberry Festival?
I don't. I really wanted to, and I started to try to track the hours that I actually put in, and then I couldn't keep up. It's that many. It's definitely something that you have to be committed to, because there's a lot to it. Between we run multiple events. We run, we have been running the Tula Q Fall Fest, which you have been a great sponsor for, by the way, in previous years. The Strawberry Day in the Park, which is in March, which is 2 weeks before festival. There's several smaller events that are all part of that one big event. And then and then next thing you know, festival is upon us. And you'll start seeing rides show up on Sunday evening before festival.
I know it well because I grew up across the street from the Strawberry Festival. My parents still live there. I drink
Yeah.
coffee with them every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I know when those rides are going to hit and leave. And my boys, even though they don't live there, they've become aware of it from spending time at their me and Papa's house. And it's kind of a nostalgic, magical kind of time of year. But I'm glad you mentioned these other secondary events, the barbecue fest, as well as the Julian Dufresne Strawberry Day in the Park, because so many people, as the festival has grown, so many people have bemoaned that, talked about the good old days, and I love the good old days. I lived through them. That was my childhood, and I greatly admire the people that put those festivals together. But these events give us kind of that smaller, intimate taste of just Ponchatoula, or mostly just Ponchatoula people. It's never too big. So if you want to get out there and eat some good food and see your friends and just enjoy a great day in the spring or the fall, they're going to scratch that itch for you. And then
Yeah,
still
absolutely.
a strawberry festival to be big enough, to put the butts in the seats so that the Rotary, the Kiwanis, the JCs, every little league team, all these nonprofits that desperately need to make money, the Charlie Landry Scholarship, they need to make money. And if we just had a 10,000 person festival, they wouldn't do that. And we would see a sharp decrease in activities for children and other people that money supports. So
Yeah,
thank you.
look, and the nonprofits, they, a lot of them make their entire annual budget in one
Yeah,
weekend, which is, great for them. They work, but it's hard work. It's an all hands on deck for whoever's organization it is. And
absolutely.
but this year I actually had the pleasure of going to the Ponchatoula High School award ceremony, which is where they
Mhm.
award all of their scholarships and grants
Yeah.
and stuff that the seniors have gotten. And as I'm sitting there listening, I hear like the Charlie Landry organization and Kiwanis, and there's several organizations that you know I know they're part of the festival.
Yeah.
And I know that the money they're making that weekend is actually going back to these students. So, it's a great feeling to know that you're part of something, and you're part of planning something that you're that that those because of that, these organizations are able to give
Mhm.
and give back to these students. And it's just a really good feeling. That's where that sense of satisfaction really comes into play.
Now, I'm glad you brought that up because, like, so Charlie Landry was, a childhood friend of mine. We played Little League
Yeah.
together and we were high school buddies, and one of the finest guys you ever met. He was unchanged from just a regular old kid growing up out there on Craft Road or Craft Lane or whatever of the three craft, roadways that are connected. He was like the super duper star, big man on campus in high school. Just legendary football player, but was just as humble and approachable and likable then. But that family has put hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars into local kids over there. I don't know their number. I wish I did. In fact, I talked to Darren Landry recently. He's going to come on the show, and we'll ask him, and he can
Oh,
tell
good.
us.
Yeah. Be a
So
good
Boo
question
Boo
for
will
him.
be here to report that. But I know, and what I'm getting to here is, like the Ned Wells Scholarship, which we're active with in Rotary. Ned Wells Memorial Scholarship has donated $700,000 to our local community. But those two and many more, and some that have come and gone, like the Kyle Pelche Scholarship, for many years donated money. So we've seen all these kids basically get to go to college. And now, for example, the Charlie Landry Scholarship paid once upon a time for people like Kevin Rayford and Jeremy Pelche, his brothers. Those guys are now serving our community in our fire
Yeah.
department, our assessor's office, and their dads and their kids are even out of school yet. So it's been really cool to see these charitable organizations have multiple generations, because those are the people that grow up to serve our community the way Daddy did and Papa did and the way Charlie did when Charlie was around, or Ned did. So that's really cool. So what are the challenges that a chairman faces as this all comes together? You have the security issue of hundreds of thousands of people and knuckleheads with guns not knowing how to act and all that. And you've got the financial issue of, I want to see these nonprofits make the money they need to. I've got the ride vendors. I've got all this going on. As you kind of approach in at D-Day or whatever, what are the biggest challenges the chairman would face, and what advice would you give to somebody who might consider following in your footsteps to do this?
Look, part of having that many people on the board is over the years we've built a great team,
Mm-hmm.
and they all have experience in what they're doing on the board. So while it is stressful to be in this seat, as you might know, you know, I also had faith in the people that were on the board and who were given job assignments and completing those job assignments. So it is, that is stress. It's a little bit stressful, but then
Mm-hmm.
again, I had the confidence to know that what needed to be done would get done.
Yeah,
Like I say, 41 people, you're dealing with a lot of different personalities.
I bet.
Um, so
Well, and it
we may
bears
not always
mentioning.
agree on everything, and
Uh-huh.
and some people can get very passionate about
Yeah,
whatever subject they're talking about.
yeah,
But at the end of the day, we come together, we make sure the job gets done. The biggest challenge biggest challenge for us is weather, because really that
yeah,
is
of
the
course.
only thing we can't control.
Yeah. But you make a point with the 41 people on the board and the experience. You have the benefit of a ton of institutional knowledge. I think of people
Yeah.
like Jeff Wright, who, or Rose Dominguez or whoever, who have served as chairperson multiple times and will often come back and be on boards appointed later. And so that's great to have people that have been there, done that. You definitely absolutely need your Amanda Abear Schlegelmeyers of the world who have done something forever and know it inside and out. But then
Yeah.
at the same time, say, dealing with a former chairperson, you might want to do things your way, and they might want to, believe that their way was the only way. And so there could be challenges there. And I'm sure that's a lot to navigate. And you mentioned the weather. The weather is something that can make it an all or nothing deal. I know, like you mentioned the Landry Scholarship. They're making oyster po' boys. Oysters have a brief shelf life, so they go in and invest a ton of money. And if the sun shines, they make a lot of po' boys and a lot of money, and kids go to college. And if it doesn't, they don't. And those
Right.
oysters get bad by the time you're in school Monday, and kids don't go to college. So there's a lot on the line with the Strawberry Festival. It's not too dramatic to say this kid may or may not get to go to college, depending on how the wind blows that weekend. But it happens.
Well, some of the smaller nonprofit organizations, yeah, that it can be
Yeah.
a do or die situation for them.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't have the capital to invest into a product that they may not be able to sell.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a definite roll of the dice for them. And you know we've been blessed the last few years. We haven't had to deal with weather too much as a factor. I was blessed this year. The weather was perfect.
Yeah.
So, and everybody did well. Everybody did well.
Well, Ruben, I thank you. You've been incredibly patient, not only with the delay to start, but we're now probably 8 minutes over. So I want to land this plane, if you will. But before I do, I want to ask you if there's anything else on your mind, on your heart, just anything at all you'd like to share with our listeners and viewers before we go. What would that be?
Well, I couldn't do this without a great support group. My wife of 27 years has been fantastic. And my daughter, my oldest daughter, is actually followed in my footsteps. She's a trooper now.
Oh, cool.
She's great. My son-in-law, he's been real helpful. My youngest daughter, who has actually been recruited onto the board with me, so she's getting her a
Okay.
taste of Strawberry
So you've
Festival.
got different daughters following your footsteps in different ways. That's really cool.
Yes, very proud of both of them too.
Yeah,
So, and
that's
then
neat.
my dad, he's still kicking, so we take good care of him. But look, I love this life. I love this area. Um, I'm glad that I'm been able to be fortunate enough to help give back, and that's not
Mhm.
going to slow down anytime soon.
Well, thank you for that, man. Thank you for your service to the state, through the state police, to our community, through the Strawberry Festival, and hearing that you're going to stick to it with it. And now you kind of have to. If you got a daughter on the board, you can't go anywhere. She needs you. So
Yeah,
that's
no.
really good, man. Well, thank you for your
Well,
time. And to our viewers, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back. Oh, actually, we won't be back next week. This is the last episode of the year. Folks that don't know, the Ponchatoula live show is a school year only show. And my kids will be out of school as of tomorrow, and I'll take the summer off to be with them. So I'll see you guys when we return in the fall. And to our final guest of the school year, Rueben, thank you for being with us. And we'll
thanks
announce.
for having me.
I'm y'all take.